Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.
I am Linda Carrier, and I live in North Carolina. I'm a long-distance runner and a type 1 diabetic for 49 years.
Hey, do you need support? I have some stuff for you. It's all free. Juiceboxpodcast.com. Click on support in the menu. Let's see what you get there. A1C and blood glucose calculator. People love that. That's actually, I think, the most popular page on the website some months. A list of great endocrinologists from listeners. That's from all over the country. There's a link to the private Facebook group, to the Circle community, and we have a fantastic thing there, American Sign Language. There's a great sign language interpreter who did the entire Bold Beginning series in ASL. So if you know anybody who would benefit from that, please send them that way. Just go to juiceboxpodcast.com and click on support. While you're there, check out the guides like the pre-bolusing guide, fat and protein insulin calculator, thyroid, GLP, caregiver burnout. You should go to the website, click around a little bit on those menus. It really, there's a lot more there than you think. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Today's podcast episode is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes, who is making life with diabetes easier with the MiniMed 780G system and their new sensor options, which include the Instinct sensor made by Abbott. Would you like to unleash the full potential of the MiniMed 780G system? You can do that at my link, medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox. Today's episode is also sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox.
I am Linda Carrier, and I live in North Carolina. I'm a long-distance runner and a type 1 diabetic for 49 years.
And Linda, is it true you're here to give me advice on where to move into my retirement because North Carolina is on the short list?
It is. It should be. And because I actually live in Pinehurst, which is the golfing capital of the world, pretty much in the U.S. And we moved there because we retired, and it is perfect. It's a small little town and just beautiful, and you can pretty much golf year round. And and there's so many golf courses. The
humidity and the hurricanes. These are what my biggest concerns.
All right. Well, I can tell you in Pinehurst, because it's probably an hour and a half, 2 hours from the coast. So when there's hurricanes that come through, it'll get a little windy and dump a little bit more rain, but you don't have the damage like you see in the news. I will say the humidity, which I moved from Seattle, so they don't know the definition of humidity there. I lived there for almost 30 years, but moved to Pinehurst, North Carolina, and the humidity, especially in like July and August, is bad. Okay. So you just basically learn to, if you're going to go golf, you golf early in the morning or later in the afternoon, and then you just go in air conditioning during the.
Aren't you super active with running though? How often do you run?
I run almost every day. Running in the humidity is hard.
Yeah.
Is really hard. And so I was running outdoors a lot, and you'd have to carry multiple bottles of water. So sometimes I would call my husband, right? And I would say, I'm over here. Can you bring another bottle of water? Because you can only carry so much. But then I started running a little bit later in the morning because I took a part-time job working on a golf course. By the time I'd get home, there was too much traffic, and we don't really have sidewalks here in the Pinehurst.
Okay.
Southern Pines kind of area, not a lot of sidewalks. So you're running on the road. And with that kind of traffic, and especially with the retirement community, you don't want target for them.
Linda's like, you got a lot of geezers out here. They're going to pick you off. You got to be careful.
Exactly, because they can't see me, right? I was like, oh my God, I'm not paying attention, whatever. A slow movement, right? Slow reaction time. So I started running on a treadmill, but I run in a garage. So I've got multiple fans blowing.
Oh my gosh, you are committed to this. Okay, all right, let's find out more about all this. You just talked me out of North Carolina, but I appreciate it. Now, although I'm not running anywhere, if I'm being honest, but still, you were diagnosed with type 1 at what age?
I was 14.
No kidding. How do you remember the year or how long ago that was?
That was 49 years ago.
49
And
years
so
ago.
I was 14, just had now hitting 49 years, actually, because it was middle of November. I can't remember the exact date, but for some reason, I think it was November 14th. My sister had been diagnosed 7 years earlier when she was 8.
Really?
And so, so I knew, kind of, we knew the signs, so when I seeing the signs, I was diagnosed earlier than she was, obviously, but like 5 years later, my brother was diagnosed. So,
hold on. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 7, or I have 6. There's 7 of us kids. And so,
or 3 for 6. Wow. Half of you. Oh, let me ask you, is there other autoimmune in your family? Your mom, your dad, grandmothers, grandfathers? I'm looking for celiac, anything like that. Hypothyroidism.
Yeah, nothing in the, like, my parents' family that we know of. However, the nieces and nephews now I have a niece and a nephew who have celiac. And so I think, it's all kind of somehow related.
Yeah, Linda, right? Vitiligo, eczema, anything like?
Nope.
No, wow, that's bizarre.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. The doctors for a while there thought it was something to do with a, hereditary type thing. But they started then, even in my neighborhood, we had a couple kids come down with it. So over the years, so we lived in a very Catholic community. And so there were a lot of families with, kids, probably the number of kids was somewhere between 5 and 9, per family. So we had a big, huge, neighborhood of children.
Linda, a lot of Irish English backgrounds?
Yes, Irish English, yep.
Okay, all right. I see a lot of autoimmune running in the Irish and English backgrounds when I talk to people. That's interesting. Yep. I once interviewed a woman who grew up near a dump and like everybody on the street had diabetes.
Oh, see, they were saying they thought it could be environmental as well, a combination.
Something. Isn't that really something, huh? Well, and your brother and sister are still with us, doing well, or how's it going for them?
My brother's doing well. My sister ended up with cancer when she was 42, and she died within 10 months of being diagnosed. So, and that, that was so hard. When you think about, you're not only dealing with type 1 diabetes, but then, with the cancer and what it does, the chemo and radiation and all that stuff that does to you, it's and hard to manage her diabetes, even while she was on a pump, but still extremely hard. And this was, 20 years ago. I just thought, that seems so unfair, right? That
I agree. I remember being incredibly upset when my daughter got a thyroid diagnosis on top of her type 1 diagnosis.
Yeah.
Just feeling like, hey, you feel like that coyote when the boulder falls on him and then the roadrunner runs by and picks at your face a little bit. You're like, hey, it's not enough. You know what I mean? So, oh my gosh. What were expectations for you when you were diagnosed? Like you say 49 years ago?
Yes, 49 years ago.
So like 75, 76?
Yes.
Oh, the bicentennial. Like I've had people, women especially, by the way, diagnosed a long time ago, tell me that their doctors, one woman was told by her doctor to drop out of college and go home because she wasn't going to live long enough to need her degree and no man would want her. So she should go off and live her life. Actual direction from a physician. So like, I'm wondering, like in that time period, what was the messaging to you?
Yeah. So the messaging to me was, we wouldn't live long. Right. So, but it was more about not being active, right? Because I was very active. I was a kind of a little hyper kid. And as soon as I was diagnosed, my parents and the doctor and everybody was like, okay, you cannot continue to play baseball and softball. And, you should learn to love reading more, be like your older sister and or your younger sister and, learn to, paint and draw and read, but even when I got diagnosed, I actually looked that up. And I remember as a kid, when my sister was diagnosed, I was 7. So it was probably when I was 8 or 9, I overheard my parents talking about how sad they were that she wouldn't probably live much into her, adult years, right? After teenage years, because she was kind of a brittle diabetic. And so she was DKA when they were able to identify that she had diabetes, like hours away from going into a coma. So she already had some issues there. But when I got diagnosed, I decided to, back in the day, look at the encyclopedias, and try and do some research to find out, like, how long do people actually live with type 1 diabetes? And I couldn't find anybody who had it past 20 years. I thought, oh, okay, and for someone who's 14, 20 years seemed like, I'd be like old by the time I died, at 34. I remember dating my husband, and when he asked me to marry him, I basically told him, I said, I'm probably going to be dead before I'm 34. So, if you're okay with that, that's good. And he was like, as much time as I've got with you, I'll take it, and here I am now, 63, and it's like
a young woman in love and thought you weren't going to live much longer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Was there any, I don't know, evidence in your life that was pointing towards this? Or was it just the fact that your parents were worried that your sister would pass and that you couldn't find record of somebody living very long with type 1? Was that all?
Yeah, the latter. There was nothing. I wasn't having any issues. I didn't, I wasn't losing any toes or fingers, and my diabetes was in control, but I couldn't find anybody. Then I thought, well, eventually you'll just die, and I wasn't sure I died, but it was like, somehow they just don't live after 20 years.
Can I ask you, did that put you in a mindset of YOLO? You know what I mean? Like, you only live once, let's go? Or did it it didn't. Yep. It didn't make you sad. It made you like, let's go for it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It didn't make me sad. I think it's mainly because, everybody dies, but I knew that. And it was just more about, what can I get done before I die? What can I do? I want to live, I want to leave something behind. I want to make sure that, I don't leave any, I don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
Right. What I was most worried about is dying with regrets of not doing something. And so, so that's how I pretty much approached it, and that.
I think that's wonderful, by the way. And I'm wondering, like, does that fit the rest of your personality, or was it something you adopted when you were faced with this? Does that make sense? Like, were you like a glass is half full person before this?
Yeah. I'm trying to think what I was like before I was 14.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. If you don't have a quick answer for it, you probably don't remember. And I'm taking my experience on trying to remember what happened last week. So,
right.
But I was wondering, like, if it shifted you, or if you were that person. I try to figure that out when I talk to people all the time, because you do speak to people who have your attitude, and you speak to people who are struggling and have trouble finding a happy attitude. And I'm always wondering if it's nature, nurture, decision, like, or somewhere in between. But it's okay if you don't know.
Yeah, I think I've always been like that, but I'd have to probably
really think about it.
Yeah, somebody. I have no idea, but I think so. I don't think it actually really changed much. I mean, I will say that there are things that happened in my life, in our life, my husband's life, that has reconfirmed, that life is short, and you just have to really live your life to the fullest, with his best friend dying at a very young age, and just even with my sister passing away, and she had some regrets, you just kind of reconfirms. And it's like, yeah, I always have that, right? It's like, because life gets in the way, and you're working and you're doing stuff, and, and then you're, when you get opportunities, I always do the best that I can to, grab every opportunity that's presented in front of me.
Yeah. Because
I think, it's like, you only live once, and, it's like,
I feel like wasted time is maybe the biggest sin you can commit.
Yes.
Yeah. Really, really something. Okay. So what was management like back then? 14 years old, were you like shooting insulin once a day? Unlike other systems that will wait until your blood sugar is 180 before delivering corrections, the MiniMed 780G system is the only system with meal detection technology that automatically detects rising sugar levels and delivers more insulin as needed to help keep your sugar levels in range, even if you're not a perfect carb counter. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes and their MiniMed 780G system, which gives you real choices because the MiniMed 780G system works with the Instinct sensor made by Abbott, as well as the Simplera Sync and Guardian 4 sensors, giving you options. The Instinct sensor is the longest wear sensor yet, lasting 15 days and designed exclusively for the MiniMed 780G. And don't forget, Medtronic Diabetes makes technology accessible for you with comprehensive insurance support, programs to help you with your out-of-pocket costs, or switching from other pump and CGM systems. Learn more and get started today with my link, medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox. contournext.com/juicebox. That's the link you'll use to find out more about the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. When you get there, there's a little bit at the top. You can click right on blood glucose monitoring. I'll do it with you. Go to meters, click on any of the meters. I'll click on the NextGen, and you're going to get more information. It's easy to use and highly accurate. SmartLight provides a simple understanding of your blood glucose levels. And of course, with second chance sampling technology, you can save money with fewer wasted test strips. As if all of that wasn't enough, the Contour NextGen also has a compatible app for an easy way to share and see your blood glucose results. contournext.com/juicebox. And if you scroll down at that link, you're going to see things like a buy now button. You could register your meter after you purchase it. Or what is this? Download a coupon. Oh, receive a free Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. Do tell. contournext.com/juicebox. Head over there now. Get the same accurate and reliable meter that we use.
Yeah, so I actually gave 2 shots a day, mixing insulin like regular and NPH in a syringe in the morning and at night. And then what was hard for me is because I'm not much of an eater or a foodie, and it's very hard when you're giving a couple shots a day. And an insulin back then, like with the long acting and the short acting, it peaks at certain times. So you pretty quickly learn that when you're giving your shot before school, that you definitely have to have something. You have to eat something around like 10 a.m. So I'd have a couple grapes or whatever. And then you have to have lunch at noon because your sugars would drop, your glucose, would just drop. Yeah. And so you had to be on this like regimented schedule of eating something at 3:00, dinner at 5:00, and I am not as like that tight of a schedule person. And so if I had to say anything I hated about it, it was that. It was always having to, just like, no, you had to, even if you're not hungry. My mom's pushing the peanut butter sandwich in front of my face. I'm like, I'm not even hungry, and it's like, eat. And you knew you had to because your sugars were dropping. I did that until we got married and moved to Sweden. So I lived in Sweden for 2 years. And there, the doctors were just trying out the Novo pen, where you got rid of the actual, I still had to do one long acting. So I'd have an injection I'd have to do in the morning. But then I used this Novo pen, which is just regular insulin. And you can, just give it when you're eating, So it was like, that was so freeing. I remember like, this is like heaven sent, that was the best thing ever, and I did that for a couple of years until I moved to Seattle. So after Sweden, I was mid-20s, 26, 27, something like that, 28 when we moved to Seattle. And it was there that I got an endocrinologist who was an actual type 1 diabetic and started showing me the insulin pump and how it's different and all about it. And at that same time, my sister had just gone on to the insulin pump, and she was using the Medtronic one, and so was he. And so I was like, So I started asking her all kinds of questions, because who not to ask your doctor and your sister who were on it, what the pros and cons were. That's kind of where I started it. Yeah.
Before we jump into that, I'm going to ask a deeper question. I'm sorry if this isn't what you were expecting today, but do you think that because by nature you didn't like the scheduling and, it was harder for you to eat when you didn't want to, et cetera. Can I ask you, did you find yourself looking for control in other aspects of life to make up for being out of control in that situation, or was that never an issue for you?
I don't know, probably, because I think that's typical. When you feel you can't control one thing, you try and control something that you can control. So I probably did. I was running at the time a lot. And so that probably was where I could control, what I did and how I did it, even though it wasn't, still, what they would recommend. And I think maybe with some schooling and stuff, maybe, probably. I don't know if I can think to one specific thing, but I know I do, when I can't control anything, I do tend to grab control of something else. Yeah.
Everybody does. I was just wondering if if you recognize, because you're not an older person, but you're an older person, and you probably had some moments to, where you've looked back and tried to apply some hindsight to your life. And I was just wondering, is the running a thing you could control? Or you sounded passionate about the idea of not liking being on that schedule, because, I know other people have had diabetes time distances as you have. Some of them loved that scheduling. It fed right into their personality, and others, no, so I don't know, I'm just very interested by all that.
Yeah, no, I hated it. And it probably, because I've been running since I was a kid, like 5, 6, 7 years old. And I probably did more of that. And I do know that when I can't control something, I do tend to look for something I can better control. So just so that you
Did an insulin pump end up helping you with that?
It did. Oh my gosh. Yes. That was like heaven sent too, I thought, because even with the Novo pen thing I used, you still had the daily injection in the morning with your long acting. And then you had the multiple, so if you ate 2 times a day, you had at least 2 more shots you're giving. So you had you're still stabbing yourself 3 times a day at a minimum. Mm-hmm. And with the insulin pump, you apply it once every 3 days. At the time I, started it with I think it was a Paradigm pump. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is even awesome. More freeing. I'm like, this is awesome. But you had the other challenges and the thing I was concerned about was what do you do with it? It's the size of a pager. How do you run with this thing? Where do you put it when you have a dress on? When I'm doing any kind of other sports, where do I, or when I'm showering or when I'm sleeping, what happens to this thing? How do you can't really disconnect from it. So, that's where I use my doctor and my sister, how do you, even relations with your husband, what do you do with this thing?
Yeah, no.
So, it's like, and so that's a quick solution, right? People had all kinds of things. And, nowadays there's all kinds of tools and websites and all kinds of stuff about, almost like garter belt type stuff that you can put the pump in your, something around your thighs so that it doesn't show on your dress or, or, pocket in your bra, there's all kinds of things that they didn't have 20, 25 years ago.
Right. Hey, at what point in this process do you realize you're not going to die when you're 34?
When I hit 34.
Really? So you got that pump and then you lived another almost decade thinking well, it's easier and that's awesome, but I'm still out of here soon.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
And we celebrated when it was my 34th, and I'm like, I am still alive, so.
Linda, let me stop you for a second. Did you feel like you were an egg timer? Because, was your health really poor? Is there anything? No, there was nothing leading you to the idea that you were going to expire. You just thought like a light switch is going to flip and you were going to go and fall over? What did you expect? I guess I'm asking.
I kind of did. I kind of I actually thought, that something would happen. Because my dad told me, and I remember him talking to both my sister and me about it. So I was probably newly diagnosed, and Kelly had it for 7 years or so. And so I remember him telling us, because I had a lot of questions. I was asking why do people die from this? How does this work? So I was doing a lot of research and just trying to verify what I was understanding. And he told me that the long-term effects of having type 1 diabetes is what kills you. And he said it was the wide variances of high blood sugars to low blood sugars, or just your body always, you get sick and your blood sugars are up and your glucose levels were up. And, it was that constant up and down, and the like climbing mountains,
the variability.
Yeah. He says not just wears on your body, it wears on every organ you have, every, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, your, everything. And so in my head, maybe not the brightest person, but I thought, eventually, like an organ fails and then you just die.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure, right? I was like, I'm not sure what it is. And I did know, I obviously was doing some of this research, but I did know that that's usually the cause of kidney failure and, people losing their toes or their legs, because of the poor control. And so one thing I had absolutely, and that's, if you want to know about what I was going to control, if I couldn't control my eating, was that control the, what my blood sugars were. And so I was a little, type A personality type with making sure that they weren't swinging, right? They're always swing, but not wildly. And so.
Did you open your eyes on the morning of your 34th birthday and think, okay.
Yeah, I did. Pretty much. Well, maybe I be the first one living past, 20
I made
years.
it. I'm going to be in an encyclopedia one day.
Exactly.
But then does that go away? Like, do you give it away? Like, oh, I guess I'm okay. Or is it a continuing learning experience? Like you're using a pump now, you have better control, you have less variability. Do you just think like, well, maybe the damage that I've been worried isn't accumulating as quickly or isn't accumulating at all? Like, where did it put your mindset then?
It put my mindset at that I think I'm living on borrowed time. And as much as I can do to continue to live on this borrowed time, I'll do. And I do think that, in my own personal opinion, I think that as long as I control my glucose levels, and just making sure that they're not wildly swinging, I think I get extra time. And so it's like my reward, so I just kind of, that's how I look at it. I just always think I'm living on borrowed time. And so if I am, then that's allowing me to do things and, and doing some of the things I want to do. Like, I was out bungee jumping in, New Zealand a few years back, and I'm like loving every minute of it. And I'm like, okay, I could die if these things came off, but I'm like, I'm on borrowed time. Awesome. So.
Oh, it's free. You find it freeing.
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
How about that? Oh, that's really interesting. Was your husband bummed when you didn't die? Did he think like, he's like, oh, I thought I wasn't going to have to be married to this lady forever? Or did he seem happy too?
I know. I think he's happy that I'm still around. Yeah.
I imagine. Tell me about A1Cs on a pump in the early days, how things have changed moving forward. When did you find a CGM? Like, how have you, because you're a person who's coming along with technology, which I think is important. So how are you finding yourself staying connected with these changes that are being made? And when do you decide, okay, I'm going to try another thing? How do you open yourself up to that, I guess?
I kind of worked in technology too. So I understand a lot of the technology, and I like to embrace it, but I'm not one that will be the first one in front of the bus, right? So I'm like, I will wait for that bus to pass a couple times and make sure it's not too close to the curb and, whatever that might be, right? I let other people try it first because it's something that, that needs to work well. I will look at, so when I got the pump, the first one didn't have a CGM, obviously. So you're still, checking your glucose levels and then managing it like you should. And being a type A personality type, I was really controlling it. I will say when I started upgrading, because I've always been on the Medtronic pump, very loyal. I loved everything about it. And so if you like it, if it's not broken, why change? But I do look at the different ones, like the ones that are, it doesn't have the tubing or the, it's 3 days on your arm and, that kind of stuff. I do look at all that stuff, and I make the decision based on if it would work for my lifestyle, and how much insulin I take and that kind of stuff. And so for right now, I've stayed with the Medtronic pump and with the tube and all that. I will say that as the CGM started coming out, I did go with the CGM, the early one, and that had a long needle. And I'm on the thin side. And so it was really hard to find a place that you could put it that wasn't into into a muscle or through blood vessels. And, so I didn't use it as much, but I did like the technology of it. And then as soon as it started changing where it was easier to insert, easier to use, I embraced it fully. And then as soon as it started getting into where it was with a loop technology, right, where it would feed back to the pump, I'm like, oh yeah, give me this, right? So, you still always being a control freak or a type A personality, I always will check my, my blood sugar, once a week now. Used to do it like every day, but the technology has allowed me to stop poking my fingers 4 times a day. This technology I'm on right now, it checks it every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't go low anymore at night, where in the past, even on the older pumps, my husband would wake up in the middle of the night and just check my chest or my back to see if I was sweating, and then would wake me up and say, you need to drink some juice. As soon as I got this pump, he even told me, he's like, oh my gosh, it's so freeing for him.
Yeah.
I know it's working. He says, even if I do wake up and I put my hand on you, you're not a sweat ball. And then it, if my blood sugars do drop, it has this alarm that would wake up the neighbors. I rarely even have that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely.
No, I know.
So,
Linda, give me a second. So do you think that you were low a lot while you were sleeping?
absolutely.
You are. Okay.
Yeah. And that's usually when I dropped, was at night. And no matter what I did to change, to try and get it to, so I didn't drop at night, I always dropped at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that is, but it was just me.
When you watch those algorithms really work, to me, that's when my understanding, I don't know, scaled up. I used to, so my daughter's 21, right? And she was diagnosed when she was 2. And
Oh, wow.
I think I figured out at about the time when she started using a CGM and I started realizing what I was seeing happen and how the insulin was impacting her and how some foods would impact differently than others, and started getting a bigger picture. I started acting like an algorithm, almost texting her, being like, hey, can you do a temp basal decrease here? Let's do a 50% decrease for 2 hours. Let's do a 20% increase for 30 minutes. Bolus again. We were doing all that. And then I did that for years, kept her A1C very nicely in the low 6s. Then she got on an algorithm and I could see it working in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, that thing's doing what I was doing.
Right, exactly.
And then I was like, oh, I'm going to sleep. And then and then the sleep came back, which is what you're talking about too, is awesome. Just any regaining of sleep is just really incredible. And so I was like, wow, that's the thing I've been doing for all these years. It's doing it automatically now.
Yep. And we love that. I love it. My husband loves it. You love it.
Yeah.
Your daughter probably loves it. It's amazing.
Well, she didn't grow up when you grew up. She doesn't even know she loves it.
Right.
Just trust me. If somebody took it from her, she'd be like, hey, whoa, what's going on? But she doesn't know it's her normal. And so that's interesting for you because you lived through other normals to get to this one.
Mm-hmm. And this normal is, and I'll tell people all the time, especially for newly diagnosed people, this is almost, for me, at least, from knowing what I was like, what I was going through at the age of 14 to where I'm at today, is I feel like a non-diabetic 99% of the time because I don't even think about it. I mean, it's hooked to me, right? So I know it's there. My old pump, I used to call Chatty Cathy because she'd always beep at me. Beep, beep, calibrate. Have you, your blood sugar's up, your blood sugar's low. You haven't touched me in 2 hours or whatever,
Right.
My gosh, Chatty Cathy here. Constantly taking it out and doing, and hitting the buttons and doing that. This one, I rarely ever have to do that, right? It's because it keeps everything pretty normal for me, except for when I'm eating. Obviously, you have to, give some insulin, give a bolus. But I rarely. It's almost like being a non-diabetic again. It's kind of weird.
So let me ask you. I mean, Medtronic's come out with. I mean, you're still with Medtronic pump, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you use? The 780G?
Yep, 780G with a G4 sensor.
Okay. And now they've got new sensors coming. Will you try different sensors?
I probably will. But right now, I have no concerns with the G4. It works for me.
Yeah.
I know there's some people that it doesn't, and I don't know why. I mean, we're all different, right? So it works for me. I rarely have. The only time I ever have an issue is if I hit into a muscle or get a bleeder. I rarely ever get, I think maybe once or twice, if that, I've ever had it where it just says change sensor.
Okay.
Very, very rarely. And so it works for me. I do like the newer sensors in that it lasts longer, so this one lasts, for me at least, it always lasts just 7 days. Or 6.5 days sometimes, depending on, I'll change it if depending on the timing, but it always lasts the amount of days. But the 15-day, I was always, I'm always like, oh. That don't
sound bad, right? Yeah. I imagine you'll change if you want to change. And if you have something that's working for you, then that's perfect too. Right. What about if they were to come out with other pumps, would you be interested in a version that looks different than the pump you have now? Or you're pretty happy where you are?
There's a couple things I would put on my wish list if I ran the world. I would love this pump to be thinner, smaller, or any pump to be thinner and smaller. Now, my brother had changed a couple of years ago to a different pump, and his is thinner and smaller, but he's been having a lot of issues with it. And I don't have any issues with mine. And it's, size of a pager, if anybody even really knows what a pager is anymore. But so it's not that big, but I would love to have something that's a little bit lighter and smaller, maybe thinner. It doesn't have to even be too much smaller, but it'd be good if it was thinner, right? Because then you worry about it showing through your pants pocket or your bra, or wherever. And I would love to be able to, I think with the technology, I know it's coming eventually, but I would love to be able to turn off or be able to release an alarm, give a bolus or your phone or something instead of having to reach into, because when you're at a dinner party as a woman and I've got my pump tucked into my bra, in the front of my dress that has a high neck, I have to almost go into the bathroom, right, to reach under and try and grab my pump and, and bolus for the dinner we're going to have, right, and tuck it back in and I would love to be able to just sit like normal people and just be able to, to do what I needed to do, right?
Yeah, make some quiet adjustments. It's funny. I thought you were gonna like say, "Oh, I hope Medtronic makes a patch pump or something like that." But that's not really it's more functional stuff for you.
More functional stuff, yeah. That's more important to me than like the patch pump. I mean, that'd be awesome, but if I still had to, I don't know, wherever you put your patch pump, if I had to like go around and roll up my sleeve to be able to do something.
I don't think you'd have to at that point. No, but I do. I am picturing you reaching down to the top of your sweater, like rooting around at dinner while everybody's looking at you. Yeah. So, I mean, I take your point. I kind of want to like ping pong a little bit over to all this running you do. Because now we have like a really good idea of where you started and where where you've gotten to as far as how you manage. But you've also talked about being low a lot overnight back in the day and everything, but you've been running through that whole thing.
Yes.
I guess I'm really interested to know what you figured out in the beginning and how it's changed over time.
So at the beginning, I've been running as a kid, and then I didn't stop running even after I got diagnosed. I started probably running more when I was in my probably late 20s, early 30s. And running my like first half marathon, that kind of stuff. And so I wasn't on a pump until I was getting ready to run my first marathon. So when I was just doing insulin injections, I would usually, if I just went out for a 6-mile run, I didn't think anything about it. I would just take some candies with me and just go. But I had no idea what my blood sugars were. I knew what they were before I started, but I didn't know, during the run if there was any kind of issues. And so, but I always had something with me. I was more worried about it being low than I was about it being high. So I always carried some kind of, like Skittles or something with me.
Yeah.
And I would have a couple issues, with running, like a half marathon. I quickly learned that you expend a lot of this energy and you're burning your sugars and that kind of stuff. And so I'd eat right after. It'd be great. But within the next 12 hours or 24 hours, my blood sugars would drop a lot. And then I didn't really know that why that was happening other than, I thought, well, maybe it's because I've, exercising a little bit longer, but I'm thinking, it's been 20 hours. Why is my blood sugar still low? And apparently, I was talking to my endocrinologist, which is very important for anybody who's a type 1 diabetic. Get a good endocrinologist and trust that person and make sure that they know about the technology. But, I had an endocrinologist and they were telling me that that's, you're still burning, 12 to 24 hours after the fact. And so I had to make sure I was eating a little bit more, maybe pasta or something, 8 hours later, just get something in you so that it's balancing it out. And so it kind of put me a little bit back to like, when I was giving individual injections, back when I was 14 and I have to stick to that schedule. I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. Well, then I went on the pump and that was very freeing. And then, then you could see, it would drop and I could adjust it, so I'd give half the amount of insulin for the next 24 hours. So I would put it at 50%. And then all of a sudden that was great, and then I would go back and put it back to normal, so the doctor, my endocrinologist at the time, was the one that was like messing around with that and making sure I could do that. So I didn't change it. I didn't change anything while I was running, but I changed it afterwards because usually where I had my issues. And then obviously when I get on this, 780G, with the G4, sensor, I now can run a marathon where all I do during the whole race is I will take at the water stops, I'll drink. Like I'll take, they have Dixie cups of like Gatorade or Powerade or whatever and water. And so I will pour a little bit of the water and pour the Gatorade or Powerade, whatever in it. I'll take a sip of that and, like whatever it is, 2 ounces and keep going. And so at every water stop, that's all I would do is take a little bit of that Gatorade with some water, just water it down a little bit. And I almost always will end the race at, about 110, 112, something like that. Right. Okay. And then even after the race, the pump, because it's looking at you every 5 minutes, right? It'll just adjust automatically. So I don't have to, make any, for me at least, I don't have to make any adjustments to the pump even 24 hours after the race.
Well, it's doing it then. Yeah. But do you find yourself getting low 20, in the hours after the race?
Not usually.
Not usually. Mm-mm. And how many, and I guess this is the part that'll freak people out. Tell people how old you are again.
I am 63 years old.
How many of these marathons have you run?
I am running, I have run 95. So I'm running my 96th on Sunday.
Wow. Can I tell you my running story?
Yes.
I was going into the grocery store yesterday and these two older people were walking out. It was a windy day and they pulled out their turkey and the receipt blew away and the old man yelled, "Damn it." And I said, "Do you need that?" And he said, "Yeah." And I ran it down and I got it for him. That was it. That's as much as I've run in the last 6 months. I just want you to say. And I was pretty proud of myself, honestly, because I didn't pull anything. You were doing it a little differently. By the way, they were grateful for that receipt. I wonder what they wanted the receipt for. They were so upset. Maybe it had like a coupon for a free, it's around Thanksgiving. Maybe there's like a free bird coupon on there or something. I don't know exactly. Anyway, this is not the point, Linda. But I got that thing, no problem. Now you're doing it differently. Are you traveling the country and doing this? Is this like a thing? Explain to me what you're doing here.
So I've been running marathons for 25, 27 years, something like that. When I ran my first one, I was just like shocked that kind of like, when I hit 34 or whatever, shocked that I was still alive. I was like, oh, it didn't kill me. I'm still alive. Okay, let's see if that was just a fluke. And so I started running. I ran another one like a year later. But I really like that distance. And so as I continue to run, I probably run one a year. I was working, going to school, that kind of stuff. And so as I continued, just running, social media started. And as soon as I got onto any of the social media sites, it could be Facebook or Instagram or, X or Twitter or whatever it is. Yeah. That's when I started seeing things like the World Marathon Majors, where you could run Chicago and New York and Boston and London and Berlin and Tokyo and now Sydney. And I thought, oh, that'd be really cool. And so I thought, I'm going to see if I can do that. And so I finished all those in 2015. I'm still running marathons. And then I obviously was trying to qualify for Boston. That's how I qualified for Boston 3 times. And one of those was for the World Marathon Majors. And then I continued, you still see these social media stuff. And then I see, I'm learning more about ultra marathons. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. Yeah, people run 50 miles and 100 miles and even longer. And, even multiple day, stages of races. And so I decided when it was my 50th birthday, I wanted to run a 50 miler. So that month of my 50th birthday, I ran a 50-mile race in Washington State, one of the, what was that one called? Mount Si marathon. So I did that and it didn't kill me. I thought, that's great. And then I saw in, 2015, I saw, might have been on Instagram, but it was the World Marathon Challenge. And this is running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. And it was the first time in 2015. And I followed it for that entire week of these people going from one continent to the next. And, it was like you go to bed and they've already got one done. And then you wake up and they've run another one. And, I thought, my God, this is fantastic. So I followed him. And then the next year they were doing it again. And I remember telling my husband, I'm like, wow, this must be a thing. He retired in 2017. And I was telling him, I was like, oh my God, they're doing it again in 2017. And he goes, why don't you go ahead and sign up and see if you can do that? So I did. I applied, and they basically said, "Oh, you're a type 1 diabetic. Get approval from your doctor." In the meantime, we're moving from Seattle to Pinehurst, North Carolina. So I had to get a new doctor, a new endocrinologist. And so when I met with her and told her kind of who I was and what I do, and and she's like, "Yeah, we don't usually deal with extreme athletes." I'm like, "I'm not extreme. I'm like, I just like to run." But she's like, "Oh no, you kind of do extreme stuff." And so, but she didn't run screaming from the room. So she's like, "All right, let's see what we can do if you're going to do this." And so we did everything that we needed to do and got accepted to run this race. And so I did it in 2019 and ran 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days. And some of the things, when running that, you have to worry about, like, you're in Antarctica. I don't want my pump to freeze, when I'm in Antarctica and need it for the next 6 days. So, you had to, figure out how to work around some of those challenges. And then, within 6 hours or whatever, we're in Cape Town, South Africa, and it's, 100% humidity and 92 degrees. You're like, okay, I don't want the pump to overheat either. Right. So, so you had those kinds of challenges along with running, but I've always been kind of into this running. And then along the way through all of this, I saw where they do this, run a marathon in all 50 states. So while I was running other marathons, training and doing whatever, I was checking off the states. So I travel around the country in the US, right, in different states and checking off those states. So I just finished that 50-state marathon in Twin Cities, Minnesota, sponsored by Medtronic. It's a marathon sponsored by Medtronic. And I thought, what better way to finish, this 50 states wearing the Medtronic pump, running a race sponsored by Medtronic, right? And I thought, oh, I'm just going to do that. And so it worked out perfectly. And so I just finished that. And so I always look for challenges. And so.
Yeah. I'm struck by how different people are, because you found this group of people online. And you're like, this is inspirational. I would have turned to somebody and said, I found a group of crazy people online. They're running all over the place. But you were like, no, these are my people. By the way, 50 states. What's the time frame? How many years did it take you to run 50 different marathons in 50 different states?
Oh, gosh. Well, I really wasn't paying any attention to it. So
years?
I've been running, I ran Seattle, 8 times because I lived there, right? So in Portland, a couple times, because I really wasn't really thinking about the 50 states until probably, it might have been around in 2015. So I had to go back.
You've been focused on this for a decade. My God. Why are you a special person? This is now my new question, Linda. How did you focus on that for a decade? How do you decide to go? Did your husband go with you 7 continents, 7 days? 7 days? Were you just I've talked to somebody who's done this before. On a plane, you land, you run, you get back on a plane, you land, just like that, right?
Yeah, you do. And I've done it 3 times, actually. I'm not.
Wait, stop. No, Linda, stop. You've done 7 continents in 7 days 3 times?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to ask a different question. What's wrong with you? Tell everybody right now.
I know. My husband, all he keeps saying is, you're not normal.
Well, yeah.
No, it's fun. And it's, he did go with me the 3rd time. So, because he looks at me as somebody with type 1 diabetes, and he understands that. But he also sees me, I'm always running. And he told me after watching this, the World Marathon Challenge, the 3rd time, and he was watching all of us run this thing. He goes, wow, I didn't realize how hard it was. He goes, you always make things look so easy. You're like, I'm going for a 20 miler. I go, okay, I'll see you in a little bit. And he goes and does his thing. And he's like, and then you're done. And we go and get something to eat. And then we go about our day and play golf or whatever. He goes, I didn't realize how hard that was. And
did you guys have kids?
No, and that's why we do some of this stuff. Yes.
Oh, I was going to say, because where are you getting all this money from? My kids are sucking me dry. Was that on purpose? Was that I'm going to be dead soon, I don't want to have children thing?
I don't know. It was more about a little bit of it was, right? Because I really worried about having kids and leaving them, and having my husband to raise them. And so that did play into a lot of it. And then we both had jobs where he traveled a ton for his job. I mean, he worked for Boeing, so he could be gone months at a time. And I thought, man, if I died, what would happen to those children?
So many of your decisions are made around whether or not you expire out of nowhere. I mean, it sounds like you're incredibly healthy. Do you have any complications?
No, I've not had any. Even my eye doctor's every time I see her, she's like, it's amazing. I can't even tell you're a diabetic with your eyes.
You're running so far, probably the diabetes can't catch up to you to grab on, I would imagine.
I tell people I'm running away from it. I know.
Well, isn't it exciting, though, to know that there's a generation of kids right now that are going to get diagnosed at 14 who will never be told your life is going to be shorter.
Right.
Who won't be told you can't run, who are never going to have the fears and the concerns that you grew up with.
Right. Yes, yeah. I know. It's amazing. And I was talking to a kid, and I want to say he was, maybe 20. He was diagnosed, I think he said when he was 18 months, 2 years. And he also has the same kind of outlook that I do. And he goes, you know what? He goes, the difference between you and me, he says, is that, and he goes, and what I see with other people who have been diagnosed, like maybe in their teens or even their 20s, later in life, he says, most of them mourn their prior life. He goes, I see that a lot. They all mourn what it was like before they had diabetes. And he says, I don't know any different. So this is he goes, so I have nothing to mourn. He goes, do you find that? And I'm like, no, I don't. I was like,
I've seen it go all different ways, Linda. Like I really have. Like I take his point. I've recorded like over 2,000 times with people with type 1 diabetes, and I'll probably do another 250 recordings in 2026 and the year after and over. And by the time I get done doing this, I'll probably have recorded with like 3,000 different people.
Wow.
I do find that people take their situation, then look at the opposite and then make a decision. Oh, that must be why I'm this way. But that person who said that to you, I've talked to people who are in that exact same situation who have the exact opposite takeaway. So I don't know. I think it's so personal and you don't even realize why you feel the way you feel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
It's not a crazy way to start your decision-making process. Like my daughter's too. She doesn't remember not having diabetes, but she is also not thrilled about it. She's not running around going like, no big deal. There are places in her life that it really impacts her and it's difficult. And there are parts of it that she just skates through. I don't know. And if she was a slightly different person, if that was my son and not my daughter, he's got a different personality. He'd intersect with it differently too.
That's true. That's very true. Because even my brother, he was in denial for the first probably 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Like he just thought didn't need insulin. He wouldn't give it. I'm like, what are you doing? Until he started having his retinas detach. And then he realized,
I figured it out then. Yeah, I bet. Real quick.
Yeah.
So what was he doing? Giving himself basal and no bolusing?
Yeah, he wasn't doing any of it. No.
Oh, was he? Did he have LADA maybe back then and they didn't know it? Was he like a slow onset?
No, he was diagnosed pretty early. My parents, because they were, they had 7 kids, so it was 3 of us, right, that had it. But at the time, it was just 2 of us. But after my sister was diagnosed, my mom used to, because back in the day, you didn't have like a little machine that you could poke your own finger and put blood on a stick and within 20 seconds or whatever. You used to have to pee in a cup, use an eyedropper, put a tablet in the eyedropper, put so many drops of urine on it, and it would turn a different color. You would compare that to the scale on the back of this bottle that the tablets came in to see kind of what your range was, but it could be like 60 to 200, 201 to 400, so you never really knew what you were in. But my mom would have us, she would do that about once a month with all of us kids. So we knew, my mom would know pretty quickly. And then she obviously recognized the signs, which I think today, when you hear these kids that are dying, because the parents don't know, or the doctors even do not know the signs of type 1 diabetes, and that with all the available, information and the tools that we use for that kind of stuff, for someone to not be aware of the signs of that is just baffling to me.
Sure.
And I think as a group, and I keep trying to do this too, is try to bring awareness, because not just within my, my immediate friends and family, because I think they pretty much know, but, we've got to expand it out even further, because it's, when they're thinking your kid is, wow, it might be because it's hot out, they're really thirsty now, but then because they're drinking a lot, now they're peeing a lot, it's like, just know the signs, but he knew. We caught him early, but he just was in denial. And so my parents would make him give his insulin injections, because he was still on injections at the time too. If he could get away with not doing it and he'd fake it, he would. And I don't know if he was because he was afraid of needles, or I don't know what. I think he was just in denial. Yeah. It was the most bizarre thing. I was like, wow, you got 2 sisters with it and are dealing with it, and you are acting like it didn't pertain to you.
So one of my bigger takeaways is that, sometimes people get labeled as non-compliant. I don't think people are non-compliant. I think everyone's personality is different. Their struggles are different and they react to things differently. I don't think anybody doesn't want to be healthy. You know, I just think there are a lot of other implications. and reasons why we act the way we act. And I don't know that we can always take credit for them. Like, I don't know that you can take credit for being like a runner who's doing all the things you're doing any more than your brother could be at fault for what he did.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's why, I'm sorry, it's why it's nice that this technology exists, right? Because no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, at this point, we could slap a CGM and a pump on you. You can live a nice long life,
right?
You know, a healthy life, a life free of complications, and then you can decide how much effort you're going to put into it after that.
Right.
But just having the gear on, really, I mean, it just propels you into a different world that did not exist when you were diagnosed.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly true. Yeah, because I mean, if you take a kid now that's diagnosed and he's like my brother, right? You put a pump on him and a CGM.
There you go.
Heck, you don't even have to. Some of these people don't even give a bolus when they're eating, right? Because a pump will make up for a lot of it, right? So you're not going to.
You could end up easily in it with an A1C in the 7s and not be that engaged, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I'd be better for you if you were pre-bolusing your meals and doing all your things. Like, I'm not saying otherwise, but I'm saying that given due respect to the fact that there are a lot of different people with a lot of different struggles and a lot of different brains, and this technology is life-changing for an entire worldwide community of people living with type 1 diabetes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It just is. I'm thankful, right? I just, every day it's like, I'm thankful. And I'm kind of excited about what's coming up, right? What new things can people think about? Because even, 20 years ago, I never would have thought that the pump with the CGM and that it would be in this closed loop system that, could almost make it feel like you weren't even a diabetic anymore, right? I just it didn't cross my mind. And now you got it. It's like, what else can they do?
My expectations, Linda, and I know not a lot about much, but my expectations are that with the help of coders and AI, that they're going to find better and better ways to make these algorithms work, and that, outcomes can get better, moving forward, and probably more quickly than you imagine right now too. Like you've really lived like your lifespan, like I don't know how much older than me. I'm 54, right? But you've lived through such a shift in technology in your life, and not just through medical stuff, right? Like, you're young enough now to like still look up and say like, hey, this AI thing's crazy. Right. And you live through the internet. You know how hard it is to tell people that like, I didn't have the internet for a big chunk of my life. You try to explain that world to them. Or I just got interviewed the other day by a college student who was like, tell me about your media consumption when you were younger. And I was like, media consumption? I was like, my friend, it was ABC, CBS, and NBC. And if I wanted to consume it, I sat in front of it when they told me it was on, and that was that. And he's like, well, what if you wanted to watch it again? I was like, I don't know. Like, that didn't happen.
Right.
And I told him, I said, I can sing the Mounds Almond Joy song from the commercial because every year in October, I made sure to sit in front of my television to watch the Charlie Brown Halloween special.
Yes.
And that company always bought an ad on it. And so like, that's how I know that Mounds don't, that whole thing. And I was like, but then that's it. Like, I was like, you saw a movie in a theater, and if you missed it, it was gone. You never saw it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The way things have changed now, like that, the way it's going to apply to this stuff, I think is going to be insane. Like, I think, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that you're not going to live in a world, even though you died 30 years ago, Linda, I don't know that you're not going to get to live in a world. My daughter's definitely going to get to live in a world.
Absolutely.
Where she's going to open up her phone one day and say, hey, I'm having pizza, but it's at Pizza Hut, not at Domino's. Don't forget, Pizza Hut hits us differently. And it's already going to be 10 steps ahead of her because it's going to have location on and know where she's at.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's crazy. So
I know. I agree. I totally agree with you. And I also think that, it's like, you talk about how we learn things and, and like the social media type stuff, I was talking about earlier. I'll tell you one of the things that I have really, because I'm a Medtronic ambassador.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, when we get together with some of these other people who have type 1 diabetes, the things that you can learn from these other ambassadors and other type 1 diabetics that I never even would have thought of, right? So like, I was just over in the New York City Marathon, and we're supporting a couple of these runners that were type 1 diabetics, and the majority of them were running their marathon for the first time. And one of them, I was talking to her, and she's like, she puts her pump in the back of her sports bra somewhere in the back. And I'm thinking, how do you do that? Right. And how do you, it's like, what, and we're all like, talking about the different patches you wear to cover your CGM when it's really hot and sweaty. And, there's so many things that, as the technology changes that I haven't yet, like a lot of these, we're using some of the new sensors. And I hadn't, obviously I'm waiting for them to try them out first. Right? I'm
I heard you say that earlier. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And I'll use them, but I'm like, I'll let you try them out first. But I start asking the questions. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What do you do? How does it do? And how do you, when you're running, what do you do? And, but you learn so much from people that are in the community as well.
Yeah.
Not just that. And I think companies like Medtronic, right, they also get that feedback and they use it, I think, to make it better and easier for all of us. And that I'm also very appreciative of. And you get a lot of, you get surveys from all kinds of people, even beyond type 1, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, Medtronic. I mean, different people. And I think it's all about, trying to get the technology to do as much for you, so you do live a hassle-free, worry-free life that I think we all deserve, right? And just, because we, got diagnosed with this disease, it doesn't mean our life ends. It doesn't mean we have to stop doing anything, right? But if anything we could do to share, what we know and what works for us, that might work for somebody else, and they can use that then to maybe create, newer technology that could make it easier. I mean, if you got a lot of technicians or, software engineers that are men that aren't type 1 diabetics, and they're creating these devices to, better control our blood sugars, but it's, it doesn't fit in a tight fitting dress,
or it doesn't think, or if it didn't think about the fluctuations from hormones from your cycle or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And Linda, you're preaching to the choir. I have a private Facebook group for the podcast that has 76,000 active members in it.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It does 120 to 160 new posts every day and 8,000 likes and comments every 24 hours.
Oh my God.
To say that I believe that community and the connection to other people is maybe half of it, it might be an understatement. I think from my point of view, you need good tools, good direction.
Yep.
You need the ability to make changes to your settings on your own, and the confidence that comes with it. And then you need the understanding and connection of other people who understand your situation. That is really most of this thing. If you have those things, you are way, way ahead. You're almost golden.
I agree.
I believe that 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I agree.
Linda, is there anything I have not asked you that I should have? Anything that you were going to hang up and go, I cannot believe we didn't talk about? I mean, have you been to the moon? I mean, you have 7 continents, 7 days, 3 times. Are you going to do it again? Are you going to give up? Like at what age do you go, hey, you know what? I'm done with this.
No, I can't imagine. I've always told my husband, if I end up having a heart attack on a race and I'm a few meters from the finish line, drag my ass across there and put on me, bury me with it. But no, I'm not giving up. And I think, I think it's one of the reasons why I'm in such good control is because I am very active. Always have been, so I didn't stop once I got diagnosed.
Yeah.
And then, and I think it's important. And then, I'm going to, I'm right now trying to run 100 marathons. So I'm only a couple away, but I'm going to finish, and I'm trying to finish my 100th running the Sydney Marathon in August next year. And then I just saw a new race that was called the deepest marathon in the world. And it's in some kind of mine in Sweden. And so I was like, I might have to check that one out.
I'm not going to bother asking you what your favorite Netflix series is because I don't think you watch television.
I don't rarely watch TV, but it's like, so I'm going to just, over the next, after I'm done with the 100, I'll probably look for things that are a little bit, unique. Like I do want to run North Pole, so I'm going to probably do North Pole, probably do this deepest marathon. I want to definitely do Athens, Greece, because that's where it all started. So I haven't done.
Does it go through the ruins and everything in Athens?
I don't know where. I've not actually looked at the route, but they say it's supposedly the route that actually started the whole marathon. So
your life is way better than mine. Let me just say now to Medtronic, if they need somebody to do a podcast with you after you've run one of these, like on location, I think I should be asked. There's a couple of not. Did you say Antarctica? Not there, but you have a great life. This is really awesome. Good for you for making that life for yourself after somebody told you weren't going to have one. Really wonderful. Really, really lovely.
But I know I'm like, I wasn't going to live this. Woe is me, and I'm going to die in a couple of years. I'm like, nope. I'm going to enjoy every minute I'm on it. Right. So
that's beautiful. It really is. Linda, I appreciate you taking the time spending this day with me.
No, thank you for asking.
No, it is a pleasure. You're just delightful.
Oh, thank you. You are too.
Oh, you didn't have to say that, but it's true. Hold on one second for me. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to remind you again about the MiniMed 780G automated insulin delivery system, which of course anticipates, adjusts, and corrects every 5 minutes, 24/7. It works around the clock so you can focus on what matters. The Juicebox community knows the importance of using technology to simplify managing diabetes. To learn more about how you can spend less time and effort managing your diabetes, visit my link, medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox. I'd like to thank the blood glucose meter that my daughter carries, the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. And don't forget, you may be paying more through your insurance right now for the meter you have than you would pay for the Contour NextGen in cash. There are links in the show notes of the audio app you're listening in right now, and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Contour and all of the sponsors. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. If you're not already subscribed or following the podcast in your favorite audio app like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do that now. Seriously, just to hit follow or subscribe will really help the show. If you go a little further in Apple Podcasts and set it up so that it downloads all new episodes, I'll be your best friend. And if you leave a 5-star review, I'll probably send you a Christmas card. Would you like a Christmas card? If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes on Facebook. Oh my, did I get lucky. The Celebrity Cruise Line reached out to me and said, how would you like to come on a cruise before your Juice Cruise so you can get a real good look at the Celebrity Beyond cruise ship and share some video with your listeners? I said, thank you. So that's where I might be right now. If it's December, let me actually find the date for you. I'm not 100% sure. I think I'm going in December, right before Christmas. I don't know, like the 3rd or 4th week of December. I'm sorry, I know this isn't much of an ad, but if you want to see video from me on the cruise ship, my wife and I are going to head out and really check it out to see what it's all about, to grab some great video for you, get it up on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook so you can see what you'd be getting if you came along on Juice Cruise 2026, which of course leaves from Miami on June 21st, 2026. We're going to be going to Coco Cay in the Bahamas, San Juan, Puerto Rico, St. Kitts and Nevis. Do not miss it. It's a great opportunity to meet other people living with type 1 diabetes, to form friendships, to learn things, and just swap stories. It's a relaxing vacation with a bunch of people who get what your life is like. And trust me, there's a lot of value in that. Juiceboxpodcast.com/juicecruise. Come check it out and go find my socials to see what that ship looks like. There's also a video at my link that's kind of a ship tour for the Celebrity Beyond. And let me tell you something. If this ship is a 10th as nice as this video is, I am in for a great time. And so are you. Juiceboxpodcast.com/juicecruise. Come along. If you're living with type 1 diabetes, the After Dark collection from the Juicebox Podcast is the only place to hear the stories that no one else talks about. From drugs to depression, self-harm, trauma, addiction, and so much more. Go to juiceboxpodcast.com up in the menu and click on After Dark. There you'll see a full list of all of the After Dark episodes. Have a podcast? Want it to sound fantastic? WrongWayRecording.com.